Here we are in the Northern Simon Museum in Pasadena, California, looking at Happy Lovers by Fragonard. It was painted in Rococo style movement between 1760 to 1765. Fragonard was a key player during the Rococo movement.
Yeah, the Rococo movement began with the death of Louis XIV after ruling for 72 years, and the next heir was his great-grandson, who was only 5 years old at the time and couldn't rule. So a regency began, which was established by an uncle of Louis XV.
And during this time, the French aristocracy had a lot of weight taken off, loosening the morals of the French court and aristocracy, and promoted the French nobility. This began a time of relaxation and a time for fun.
Yes, exactly, and during this time many artists such as Fragonard would paint the gaiety lifestyle of the French aristocracy. They no longer valued French Baroque art, but now was a time for the Rococo style to come into play. Many of the Rococo paintings would make you feel rather than think due to its characteristics.
Right, and some of the characteristics are to go outside and embrace what nature has to offer. They use many bright colors, bright lighting, pastel colors in their clothing, and the wispy brushstrokes the artists used. And when we look at Happy Lovers, we see a perfect example of a Rococo painting.
You're right. Now let's really get into this painting, where we see two young couples out and embracing nature and escaping from their courtly lifestyle. We see that these couples are having fun and relaxing, wearing their peasant clothing.
Yes, but they weren't actually peasants.
Yeah, you're right, they aren't peasants, but actually part of the French nobility. We can clearly see this when looking at their skin tone, very pale, and we could see their rosy cheeks, meaning that they don't do any work in nature. We see a hat right beside them, which is used to cover one's face from the heat, but it is simply lying on the ground.
Yeah, and we can also tell that they are part of this French nobility, as they just lay in midday having fun, opposing to working, as a working class would do. They are just in a time of freedom, not worrying so much about their everyday life.
When we look at the young man, he looks at her as if he has fallen in love and almost amazed at her beauty. And when we look at the young woman, we see her with a flirtatious smile. The man seems extremely in love with her.
Whereas the woman is just looking for a little fun. She is a bird collector as we look at the cage in her hand, and a bigger bird cage at the bottom left corner. We see in her left hand a bird cage possibly wanting to receive the man's dove. This would show she wants to add the young man to her collection of sexual partners. We see the young woman more in control and action, whereas the man has no idea what's really going on.
Right, and during the Rococo style, women had a lot of power over the men, making the Rococo style also known as the feminist style. Fragonard would incorporate courtly love paintings as we see the young woman trying to seduce the man.
As we look at the background, Fragonard is putting emphasis in these two lovers by incorporating nature in his background, mainly the arch as you see right above the two lovers. In Fragonard's technique, we see the background, such as the blue sky, which he uses wispy brushstrokes, is more hazy than the rest of the picture, again putting emphasis and focus on the two lovers.
We see coexistence with nature and man, similar to the literature poem of Oscar Wilde's Impression de Matin, meaning impression of morning. In this poem, we see man and nature both in the same environment living amongst each other, where a bird is peacefully singing and landing on a man-made building, signifying that it is okay for man and nature to coexist, which we see in this painting.
Of course, but we can't forget the literature text Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, where Victor is seen wandering in nature, realizing its true beauty when witnessing an avalanche. It is beautiful because we can see what nature can do. Fragonard is showing the true beauty of nature as it can emphasize the two lovers.
But we can't forget what Fragonard was truly showing. Fete galante, the nobility at leisure.